Welcome back to Birth of a Race Car, capturing my journey from car restoration to the MG Car Club 2022 Speed Series. In this episode, we're going to be having a look at the carburetors. So these are the carburetors off the car. They're the standard 1.25" SUs, and looking at the regulations for sprinting and hill climbing in Group 2, these have to keep standard. I'm allowed to change the needles and jets, but other than that, this aperture has to remain constant, and I can't enlarge the SUs, possibly to the 1.5", which would have given me maybe a little bit more performance. So we've got what we've got. I can, however, change the inlet manifold, so I'm going to be doing that and a little bit more on that later. The SU carburetor itself is a really simple piece of equipment, and actually you shouldn't be afraid of stripping it down at all, as it's very easy to clean and put back together. In principle, there's a few key parts to it. You've got your float chamber over on the side where the fuel comes in and is regulated to a set level to always be available. That then is sucked through this pipe and up through what's often referred to as the jet, and that's where you've got this adjustment here. On the front of the carburetor, you've got the butterfly valve, and that's simply controlled by a brass shaft, and you've got your lever mechanism here connected to the cable. And as the butterfly valve opens, it allows more vacuum to come through to the piston here, which uses the Venturi effect, lowering the pressure in this top chamber, and as it does so, it lifts the piston, and you can see there when it does lift the piston, that exposes the needle. The needle is pulled out of the jet, allowing more fuel to come through, more fuel, more air, and therefore the engine picks up. So the majority of issues I've come across with SU carburetors are generally down to cleanliness and maintenance. A few key things tend to happen. As the car goes through its use, then you might get grit and grime build up in and around the piston area, which would stop the piston rising and falling smoothly. You can get grit that might go down into the jet or come through from the float. If there are fuel filters not being looked after, that can collect in the bottom of the float and potentially get caught in this area here, maybe even again jamming up the jet, therefore stopping the needle coming down on its return. So when that happens, you tend to start getting poor running or lack of fuel coming through, and that's really an indicator that these carbs need to be stripped down. So with these carbs, my goal is not to improve them, it's just to clean them down, make sure that they're moving correctly in all the right places, there's no hidden grime. I've got some new gaskets for the float chambers, and then they'll be ready to go back on the car, and that's really what I want to do, just get them to a place where they can go back on the car, ready for tuning, when we can start thinking about changing needles and jets and other things like that. So I'm going to strip these apart now, and to clean them I've made myself up a bath of degreaser. So we're going to get them apart, get them in the degreasing bath, and then we'll be using wire brushes primarily, just to get off as much of the grime as we can, and then we'll use an air line to blow out all of the lines and make sure we've got nothing hidden in there. So these are the main components we're going to be cleaning. We'll clean the bell housing, the piston itself, together with the piston, so we'll give that a really good bath and then a clean. We'll check the float chamber, and the easiest way to do this is to seal one of the tubes, or just the tube, or not if it's not there, and then blow into the remaining tube, and then as you operate the float you should hear the flow of air stop and go accordingly. If the airflow doesn't stop, then there's a good chance that valve there will need replacing. Other than that, the main body, what we're going to do is wash out the inside of the float chamber. We'll give the main body a good clean in degreaser and a bit of a scrub, and then we'll use an airline to blow out through the jet and then through the bottom of the float chamber to make sure that line underneath the carburetor is all clear. Once we've got that, we can apply some grease to the right areas and begin to put those parts back together. So the main body of the carburetor is cleaned up well, not perfect. I mean, to do it really perfectly, something like an ultrasonic welder would probably be a better approach, but certainly for what I want, that's going to be absolutely brilliant. We've got our cleaned cover here and also the piston. That's come up well. So what I'm going to do is give the components a coat of WD-40 just to prevent any rust prevention, and then we can reassemble in the reverse order that it was disassembled. So there we have the first carburetor done. I've not put any oil in the top. You need to put some 20 weight oil in the top of the damper. I've not done that yet. I'll do that when it's on the car. I've not done any tuning or changed any needles yet. Again, that'll be done on a rolling road, so that's not something that I'm going to be doing here. Just as a check, what I've done is made sure that the piston, when I lift that, drops back down to the front with a nice thud. So that's working okay, and I know that when I operate the choke and the choke mechanism, that's returning back as it should do as well. So the float chamber, you may have seen me blow into that. That was sealing nicely, so that is ready for me to drop back onto the car. So next I'm going to do the other one. So that's our carburetors rebuilt. Really pleased with how those have come out, ready to go back on the car. Next then we need to think about the inlet manifold. So this is the standard MG Midget inlet manifold, and this is inherently compromised. If you look up there, you can see the what happens to the airflow as the fuel comes in towards the engine. You've got this balance chamber across the top, which is used for various takeoffs as well. So not very good in terms of induction airflow. So what I'm going to be using for my setup is one of these. This is a Maniflow 1.25" inlet manifold, and you can see here, just by looking at the way the airflow smoothly goes from the carburetor into the engine, that should give a much better fuel delivery system. So what we're going to do is build the carburetors onto this, but first thing I need to do is get the studs out of the old manifold. So with the studs taken out of the old manifold, put across the new one, I reassembled the two carburetors onto the new inlet manifold, put the balance shafts on. So now you can see when I operate the choke, the needles are redressed from the jets, or the jets drop I should say, to allow more fuel through, We've done the drop test, so we know that each of the pistons drops nice and smoothly. So around this side, the throttle moves nice and smoothly. So that's the carburetors finished now. We can put this assembly aside and wait for the engine to go back into the car when this can be fitted up. And then final tuning will be done on the car.